Hello everyone, this is my video on the Biolabs using stack inserters that are clocked and they work. It is kind of working. So the thing is, like, I don't consider this blueprint finished, but I'm kind of burnt out on megabasing and testing, and I'll get into what are some of the things that are still missing near the end of the video. But because even this version, it works, it does better than Abucnasty's version, at least on research in prod, research productivity, and most sciences. It's about equal on still productivity, which is one of the things that are frustrating me because it doesn't exactly make sense based on some other things. But in any case, it works. A few optimizations I would like to make are kind of minor. Just to give you an example, it's like removing the set filters, if I could, from these inserters, maybe changing how the signals are sent, and maybe, especially with agricultural, here, somehow minimizing how many belts I'm reading, or also I'm reading the belts here to detect backpressure loss. So some of these things that I may need to, ideally, you'd find some ways to reduce the UPS cost. But in any case, the basic principle works. So first, when we want to talk about stack inserters and using them to have an optimal blueprint, the problem with clocking them is that there is a low insertion limit in the labs, and if you don't know what an insertion limit is, then you take any recipe, little doesn't matter, and you can see, for example, for this recipe at the speed that it is running, it has an automated insertion limit of 100. If I increase the speed, that should increase as well and goes up to 200. So, of course, for the labs, it doesn't really say what the insertion limit is, but anyway, yeah. If you have a fully beacon lab, the insertion limit, if you're doing research productivity, is 6. So that means the inserters will insert if you have 5 or less science packs, and the quality of the science packs don't matter. And if you're doing something other than research productivity, because everything else is 60 seconds instead of 120, the insertion limit is 10. So they will insert if you have 9 or less inside them. And you can actually see this with agricultural science, because this one is the only one that I haven't clocked now. So once it gets to 5, it will immediately insert more. So the problem with this is, obviously, you're trying to insert 16 items, and you cannot insert if you have 15 or less. You need to have 5 or less. So you cannot simply clock randomly, clock in some simple manner, because the thing is, like, as you're switching the sciences around, and I can demonstrate this and just keep switching sciences, eventually it's gonna run into issues. And I just need to keep doing this until it happens. Eventually will. So, but you can even start seeing it now, where 19, this is at 11, this is at 21, this is at 13, 18, 13. So if I go to the easiest one for it to break is with research productivity, and I need to double the clock here in order to, clock them correctly, because I need to be starting half as frequently if I'm doing research productivity, and it will probably break, and yeah, it breaks. So the most likely, if you clock them very simply, it will break, most likely on research productivity. Now, just to let you know that this should be working, we can copy it and, oops, let's move it up here. If we do the exact same thing here, it will actually work. Why is that? Because now these are all together. So they're all inserting together, so there's no problem here. So it's not that the clock is, I've misclocked it and it doesn't insert fast enough. It's just that, when it tries to insert, let's wait until the next cycle. Okay. So here, now it's going to try to insert, well, it's going to try to insert everything, but it can insert red, green, blue, but it can't insert military. So there's a bunch of them which it cannot insert, so as you see it inserts most of them, but not gray, not yellow, white. So all the ones that are above 6, it cannot insert, and then the ones that it did not insert will run out. You know, some, maybe not all of them, and then it will probably insert most of them. So that's kind of the problem. And this also hints at what the solution is that you need to sync them up first, and and then it will work, then it'll be fine. Now, a second thing I have done with my labs that needs to be taken into consideration before going actually through them is that I found that there are a few ways to insert these items. So here, every inserter inserts at the same time, whereas here I go from left to right. The steel comes from the left, so I go from left to right, first this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. Now, I found in my testing that very specifically for this test, this performs about 5% better than this one. And the main reason I am guessing is because of the gaps. So the transport lines, when I pick up, they make a gap that, and here they make a lot of gaps and they last a long time, and they disappear actually at the same time overall. But here I only make one gap at a time, and maybe I need to slow it down so you can see there's one gap, and then it goes away, and then it goes away, and then it goes away. So there's only one gap at any moment, whereas here there is, I don't know, 10, and then there's 9, then there's 8, then there's 7, and eventually they all disappear, but yeah. Now I think that's the reasoning, and transport line time indeed is cheaper here than here, but also inserter time is lower for whatever reason. Also, it enables you, if you do it like this, because every inserter picks up as if the belt is stopped, you can actually pick up from underground belts within 4 ticks instead of 5, 6, 7, 8, however long it takes in this case. Like, these ones would not be able to do that, and I can demonstrate that by doing this. How long do they stay enabled for? Do they stay enabled for too long? They stay enabled for 6 ticks. Okay, well, they need to be enabled for longer, so I can demonstrate this. Let's have 16. This is still at 12. So, whereas in this case, they finish faster. Now, the next thing to note here is that how long, when this one picks up, it takes 4 ticks. How long do I need to wait for the next one? I need to wait exactly 8 ticks. And the reason is, if you browse over a belt, you see it says 60 items per second. Damn it. Here, 60 items per second. But actually that's 30 items per second per lane. So really that's 1 item every 2 ticks. And yeah, I'm picking up 16, but really I'm picking up 4 items. So 1 item every 2 ticks, 4 items every 8 ticks. So it takes 8 ticks if you pick up 4 items for them to, for the rest that is further back to come back and close the gap. So you need at least 8 ticks in between them to pick one up from the next. And this does it by dividing by 8 here. So ignore this clock, this just to start it up, but I have 10 starters here, so every 80 ticks they loop around and divide by 8, and then you have a value of t which increases and tells which one to insert. So when t is 0, this guy inserts. When t is 1, this one, this one, this one. So because this is better for UPS, and I think even in the actual blueprint it turned out to be this way, this is another one of the restrictions I've placed. Now, let's talk about actually clocking this. So let's forget the insertion limit. Imagine there wasn't one. How would you clock these labs? Well, you need to calculate how often you need to insert. And here I'm assuming that I'm gonna insert and the lab is gonna be working non-stop. There is a bit of a consideration to make about, okay, well, am I gonna have, here I have 32 labs, which is not enough to consume one full belt of normal quality science. You need 33 labs if you're doing something other than research productivity. The problem is if you're doing 33, then either you will have one lab that doesn't work all the time, or all of them will not work. Either one of them will work like half the time, or all of them will work most of the time, like 98% of the time or something. And I think that's worse for UBS. Also, you can guarantee back pressure a bit better if you have 32 labs instead of 33. You know, since with 33 you would be consuming the whole thing. Also, 32 labs is divisible by 2, so I have a better way of bringing in the supplementary agricultural here. I do that to account for the agricultural being on one lane, because obviously you need to consume more than 120 per second, instead of having requester chests in the labs that are in the close to the hub, close to the novice landing pad. So that's why I recommend 32 instead of 33. They work all the time, which also is better for UPS. And now, why not 32 instead of 64? That's because if you have 64, what are you going to do? Half of them are not going to be working half the time. That's a bunch of electrical... going to increase your electric network update time unnecessarily because they're doing nothing. It's also you're also gonna be using a lot of beacons that do nothing when you're not doing research productivity. So I think the meta is the best way to deal with this is to just do research productivity at actually half the SPM. So you should have your labs working all the time and you just do research productivity half the time. I think the meta will end up being that, you know, with current processors in 2025, 2026, the most optimal Megabase probably can get 5 million SPM when doing research productivity and about 10 million when doing other things. So yeah, you'll just have however many labs that is, and you'll just do research productivity at half the SPM. But if you actually had half the labs and you did research productivity at 5 million SPM, then if you also do everything else at the 5 million SPM, then you're kind of wasting update time, because when you're doing the other stuff at 5 million SPM, you know, then you aren't using your computer completely while you're researching mining prod, for example, or worker robot speed. Anyway, so that's another restriction. I also talked about the restriction of adding supplementary agricultural. Also the agricultural in Promethium, although it doesn't have to be Promethium, but anyway, Promethium comes from the left, which is where the landing pad should be, and everything else comes from the outside, so that if they all come together, then that helps with this staggering that I talked about, this thing, so that, well, the other one, this thing, so that the ones picking up first, they all pick up together, because if half of them come from here, the other half from the other side, namely, you know, the sciences that are not on novice, like white, magnetic, allergic, etc. Then in my testing, that was worse. So if you do it the reverse, you pick up first from these ones, then from these ones, you know, right to left in this case, or in this case, left to right. That's worse. But let's just say that I've had conflicting results, and the worst thing to do to UPS test in my experience is stuff that has to do with inserters and belts. I just get a lot of inconsistent results, and yeah, it's really frustrating. Okay, so the restrictions. Now let's get back to actual clocking. How do you calculate how often you need to clock? So the research speed here is 444.5. So when you're researching something like steel productivity, this is a 60-second craft essentially. Every 60 seconds you're supposed to consume one of each of the normal science packs. However, since your speed is 444.5, you're actually consuming more science packs. I can show you what that means. So you're going to be doing, divide by 60, you should be consuming 7.4 science packs per second. Now that's not actually the case because don't forget the Biolabs actually consume them at half the rate. So you need to halve this again. And this is a correct rate. You're actually consuming slab now. Well, no, I'm doing research productivity now, so it's actually even half of that. This slab is consuming 1.852 science packs per second. So if I progress 1 second, you should see about 2 of them getting consumed. So from 5 at 20%, it should go down to 3 at 40% or so. Yeah, 35%. It's just a little confirmation. Now, how do you use this? Well, okay, so that's the rate of consumption. I have a little thing here. So you want to pick up 16 items, okay, and then you divide this. This is the rate of consumption. If you're not doing research productivity, if you're doing something else like steel productivity, and then this will give you how many. Sorry, how often you should pick up in seconds. So first, let's look at that. So every 4.312 seconds, I should be picking up, but I want to find out in ticks. So in ticks, I should be picking up every 259 ticks, 0.167, blah 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 blah. Now, if I do 259 ticks in this clock, you know, if I do sorry. Well, first of all, here if I do 259, it's really 260. So if I want to do 259 tick rotation, I should put 258. Now, of course, I'm doing research productivity, in which case this doubles. So let's just double it here. This is 518. So let's do 517. Now, what's going to happen if I do that? It's just going to start increasingly have more and more science packs in here. So eventually it's just going to kind of fill it up. It's actually inserting faster than it should. And if I set it to lower than that, so this is every 519 ticks, but I want every 518.3. It will actually stop working every now and then. You see, sometimes it says it pops lack of ingredients. Maybe like this, it will be more apparent. This sometimes it doesn't say working. So the question is, okay, well, this works fine enough, you know, if you don't care about this, but we want the optimal thing. So how do we clock it so that we actually get this exact ratio? You actually need what I would call a fractional clock, a sub-tick clock. And the way to do this is, yeah, you go to Wolframma, you set up the correct, you type it correctly here, and then what you want to look for is this rational approximation, and you want to look for the numerator and the denominator, and this is that clock. So you want to put the bottom part, the 889 here, which is going to be how my clock increases. So it decreases by 889 per tick instead of 1 per tick. And then this is the maximum of the clock, which is the top part. But of course, this is, yeah, I had it for not research productivity. So 230 for 100. And that's what I have here, 230 for 100. And then you need to set this up. Usually, if you wanted to enable for 1 tick, you set it to the same as this. Below 889, this will enable it basically for 1 tick. Now, the way this works is that this is supposed to be every 259 ticks. Right, so... Hold on, it's just going too fast. So this is enabled. And it's supposed to be 259.1. So if I go forward like 258... Actually speed this up. 259. Now it's enabled again. But what does this mean? You got to enable after 259 ticks, not after 259.167, right? So if I go again, 259 ticks. Again, 259 ticks. Oh, now it didn't. Now it's 260 ticks. So that's how it works. Sometimes it enables after 259 ticks, sometimes after 260. But on average, it is actually going to do this actual value or the approximation of it like that. Usually the approximation might be completely accurate. And in practice, how it works is you're gonna start inserting. So we can look at this actually. We can change to this clock, which is better, and remove this because that's just worse. And then we can restart this. So they all insert, and then we go forward, let's say... Oh, I'm actually doing research prod, sorry, so I need to double this. Sorry. So we're gonna double this. So now let's go forward. Was it 6520? Let's go forward 510. I missed it. Sorry. Let's start again. Okay, let's go forward 500. Okay, so now look at what happens. Guys pick up. Now it's missing science packs for exactly 1 tick. That's because it took too long. The first one took too long. On the next one, actually fine. So once it does this, from now on it's gonna work non-stop. So that's how it works, because sometimes it will do 519 ticks and sometimes 518 ticks. When it does 519, if it happens to do first 519, then it's gonna be a bit behind. But once it catches up, then it's gonna stay caught up for the rest of time. So that's how it works. And this is the basic clock that we're gonna use, and we can actually now start looking at the at the actual blueprint. Only 23 minutes in. So this is the clock right here. Here's the 889, and I have one for each science pack, because obviously here I am doing research productivity, so the clock here is 460,800, just like it was over here. 6,800. And let me also just stop these, because I don't want them to affect the results. The uncommon one is double, rare is triple that, 4 times for epic and 6 times for legendary. Clock is the actual increment to the clock is the same, 889 everywhere. And then the clock here, instead of being below 889, it's below 890. The reason is because I'm using the each operator here. So the way to counter, but this doesn't matter actually. Yeah, it doesn't matter, because if you think about it, instead of doing 0 to 888, I'm doing 1 to 889. So it's still like a range of 889 values, which I accept here as the clock enabling. So it doesn't really matter. It will still, the clock will still work fine. So this is one way to deal with the each being a problem here, because if some value is 0, it doesn't pass it along because it doesn't know which ones you're supposed to pass along. Now how do I normally, in order to set these values to the clock, how high it should count, I have this constant combinator, but I need a way to change from these values to the doubled values when I'm doing resource productivity. So I have this combinator here, which based on the signal which it receives from somewhere else, which I will talk about later, how it receives the signal. If I have if I'm doing if I'm consuming Prometheum science packs, then I also pass along this part. Like you can kind of see it here. If this is correct, then pass along the red. So the red is then connected to this one, and then it doubles this. Okay, so what do we do after that? Here I have one for each signal, and this is again to account for the fact that I'm using the each symbol. So normally this would be each equals 0 if you could detect zeros. And what this does is it just starts a clock. When it just starts a clock that counts one tick at a time, which counts how many ticks ago did this clock reset for each of the qualities, and pass along a signal here. Like when did this last output? I guess you can't see it at 4 times speed. Yeah. So it passes that along. Then it's divided by 8. If you remember the division by 8 which we had in this blueprint, this one, this division by 8. Sorry, I forgot. These are passed. This clock is then passed along with +7 to each of them. This is just how it rounds out. When I start at 0, I want immediately from 0 +7 to go to 8, so that I output 1 immediately. So you can see outputs 1. And then here it catches up to 32 because I have 32 labs, so it will output from 1 to 32. Then what happens? Here basically you translate the normal quality signals or the quality signals which you have here, because this tells you what qualities you're supposed to insert, but it doesn't, you can't just say, oh, you guys insert the correct quality. You need to tell which inserter needs to insert. So here I have this inserter that uses this belt line. This is inserter 1. This is inserter 2. This is inserter 3. I think this is 4. This is 5. And the Prometheum one is 6. And the agricultural has the signal A instead. So here we translate from quality to inserter. So for example, for the red science pack, I have normal quality, which you can see on the belt. And you can see, for example, the green is legendary, the orange is uncommon. So as you see here, the orange uncommon, green is legendary. So, and this is also the thing you need to set manually. You need to, if you have different qualities, science packs, you need to set the correct quality here. So if you had, which is really simple, you just select the correct one here. Also, you need to set. Also, you can also change what you put on it. So, like if instead of red and green, you want red and blue here for some reason, and you want the green somewhere else, you can change them. Just make sure, like this. Here, you need to put what goes on to this inserter, the one here. And also what you put on the top versus the bottom, it doesn't matter. Like I can reverse them as long as you also reverse these. This one you never need to touch because you're going to be doing normal quality Prometheum. In theory, it could have its own separate system, but might as well be together with the rest. So this translates it to the value 1 in order to enable the correct inserter. And then this just checks whether I'm actually consuming red signs. So for example, if I switch to this one and take some time because of the transition phase, so now I'm no longer consuming certain science packs because this, for example, doesn't consume purple. So purple now is not equal to 0, so it does not pass along the signals. And I don't want it to do that because otherwise these inserters would be enabling for no reason. And I don't want that. That's a waste of update time. So yeah, the signals get passed on to here. I do have another system which detects whether I should be passing that along. I'll talk about it later. But the signals are then gathered. These ones on a green wire and these ones on a red wire. They're passed along here, and then these are passed onto the middle of these three combinators. The middle one here, the middle one here, the middle one here. And this is the main one. Each one of these controls a column, right? Because, like I said, I want to insert from right to left, and you can see the insertion happening. Burp, burp. Okay, so this signal, what does it do? If the red or the green is equal to one of these numbers, you can see them over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they go up to 32. Then pass along the signal. And by the way, I'm not sure, I may be able to just remove this and just select both red and green, but I could be wrong. I probably tried that. I can't remember because it's been a couple months now. I probably tried that and for some reason didn't work. Anyway. Although now that I look at it, I can't think why it wouldn't. But I guess we can even try this. Let's go to one further back so that I can see a signal coming in early enough. There you go. So this is 15. Here we go. So I pass along the... Why is it only passing along these signals? Okay, yeah, clearly it doesn't work. This should be passing along... Yeah, okay. I don't understand why it's not working, but it doesn't matter. Let's load just to make sure it's working. You would think it would, but yeah, I guess it doesn't. Anyway, so it detects whether I have one or the other signals. Let's go to once in the end, because now I can easily do that. Let's go to 28. There you go. It's a good example. So now I kind of want to enable every inserter except the fourth one. So the fourth one is this one. So now they enable. You see I'm passing along 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. So this guy is not picking up, but if you see the rest are picking up. And what you see happen here is these signals will stay for 3 and 5. They will not go away and then come back. See, the 3 and 5 just stays here. So 3 is this guy, and 5 is this guy. So the cool thing about this, and this is why I needed to use separate signals here, is that these ones don't enable, disable, and then enable again. This combinator may have to do some tricky stuff here, but all the inserters here, they just see a continuous 3 signal over here. So it just come back and they pick up for a second time. Only these two. And there you go. That's a nice way to a bit of a UPS gain by keeping a constant signal here. Also, I know I've learned that having multiple signals here, like here having the stack and the 3 and the 5, the fact that this guy has the 5 here does not matter. Okay, it does not care, really. What does matter is the set filters, which I wish there was a way to get rid of it. But the extra signals, if they do not affect it, they don't really affect the UPS cost for this inserter. That there is a mixture of signals, and this is nice because these are all on a single green circuit that combines every column. So that's the basic logic. That's how it works while you're doing nothing much at all. Agricultural is on a completely different circuit, so I'm really gonna talk about agricultural later on its own, but it's completely independent. It just works on its own and does its own thing. So yeah, when we're talking about all of this, just ignore agriculture. Just imagine it doesn't exist. Here's where I have the second copy. This is what does the red signals here, and the one at the top does the green ones, but it's exactly the same. There's one difference which I'll talk about later, but yeah, it's just, and the difference is that they're just offset. The clocks are offset, so the signal, where they count to, it's the same. But if you notice, these are like 210 to 10 to 10. Here they're 217 to 217. So they're offset by 8 ticks. In order to have this thing happen, where the green wire first enables them, and then they stay enabled for the red if they need to, or they enable only with the red, or only with the green. But if they need to pick up 2 times, they just stay enabled. And this was the way I figured out how to do it. Maybe there is a better way. I don't know. It's a bit difficult to find a better way. But that's how I did it. So I have a completely separate clock. That's really the only difference here. And this one goes to these guys instead of the top ones. Now, the next thing probably to talk about is, and the hardest part is, how do you transition? Because as you noticed in the little things I had here, which I now delete because I loaded, the problem was when you switch around sciences that eventually the labs can get, because the science packs here are desynced, which they are now, but that's okay because I've addressed it. If they're desynced in a certain manner, then a simple clock will just not work. Simply having this, which in theory would be sufficient, like in theory this would be more than sufficient. Everything I talked about so far would be more than sufficient if the insertion limit was above 16. But because of the issues that can happen, we need to find a way to make it work, so that changing science a bunch of times doesn't break the labs. So the first thing that I need to do is this lab here, and only this one is special. Abucnasty has kind of popularized the lead follower term, but this lab is not really a lead lab. It does not lead the others in the typical fashion that you would expect. This is only a science detection lab. It detects what science packs am I consuming or not. That's it. So that's how you should think about it. And you'll notice here, like, I'm inserting science from a stack inserter, and then I have bulk inserters with a stack size of 1, so that it is very responsive to changes in what science packs I am picking up. I could change this to stack size 4, and then I wouldn't need this chest. But because I want to be really responsive, not that it's really needed, but I just like that. I have bulk inserters with stack size 1 picking up from chess. So, and by the way, these combiners here, they don't really do anything. They're just like, they just read what sciences are coming in, and then they're like, if I have less than 16, basically, then the respective stack inserter, like this guy, will pick up. Well, I guess in this case it's this guy will pick up pink and white and put it in the chest, and then this guy can insert them. So, okay, how do we detect the signs? If you notice, all of these are on a red circuit, and they read pulse, and then that gets passed along onto here. So here, this is just a clock that counts the ticks since I last inserted. So I'm kind of slow it down. I see the ticks increasing. This again equals to 1, and I have 1 numbers here. So basically, when they go from 1 to 2, that's the detection. Again, this is to address the issue of having the each symbol. Ideally, this will be equal to 0. And whenever I detected something, it would reset the clock, but there's no way for it to know what the clock is if you do it this way. So how do I get the ones here? I read these 5 belts, I pass it along here, and then I'm like output the input count, and I have all the qualities here, so it outputs all of these. Sorry, let me get faster again. Then I cut them down to 1, and then I pass them onto here, so it constantly has these values unless I lose back pressure, which doesn't matter in that case. You'll see why later. So this keeps a clock of when did I last insert each signs, and this is the signs detection basically. So this passes along the value here, and this tells me whether I'm doing research productivity basically. If I'm inserting Promethium always at less than 50 ticks, then I'm doing research Promethium research. So this is what gets passed onto here and changes the clocks. And now we go to this part, which seems very daunting, but it actually isn't. It's really simple. But first, we need to talk a bit more about the signs detection. So you see this signal gets passed onto here. So this is the same, it's just a clock. And then these values are normalized based on their quality. So this combinator multiplies normal quality with 12, 6 for uncommon, blah blah blah, up to 2 for legendary. And the reason is because then what I do is I just delay them by 1 tick, and then basically it's this detects, oh, what did I stop using a science pack that I was using, or did I start using a science pack that I had stopped using? Basically, if there was a science change. And yeah, in order for this to be normalized to 500, that's why I need to multiply this by 12. And if you'll notice here, this resets every like 35 or so. That's because that's how many ticks it needs to insert it. So 35 times 12 is roughly 400. So that's why these are at around 500. And what it does is it sends a wait signal or whatever. This is more like a, oh, I detected we should research, so we should transition signal. And then this transition signal resets this clock, and the clock starts counting up. So, okay. Let's talk a bit about the logic of how do we address the issue of the science packs not being all together. So let's pause. Let's imagine I change research right now. And imagine I just start inserting by just changing the clocks and whatever. This one is actually not too bad, but let's find one that's an even worse offender. Or just let's wait a little bit and one of them will become a really bad offender. Sorry, give it a second, although, there you go. So if I switch right now, this is at 19, this is at 17, like they're kind of all over the place. And this is more of an issue if I start from something else and I'm going back to research productivity. So for example, hold on, let me, so the most extreme example, needs to speed up a little. Okay, there we go. So now we have 9. we're gonna switch to something that like this, which doesn't use this. And okay, well, it happened to only add 4. But imagine that this went up to 25, because I could have gone from 9 plus 16 up to 25, right? Wait, I know how I'm gonna. Maybe if I do this. Done. See when it next inserts. Okay, 21, and let's say now I switch here, and blah blah blah, and now I switch back to research prod. Well, this is the problem. This is really the problem, because it's like, okay, this is gonna be very distinct now, because this is gonna be consumed within like, what is it, 300 ticks, and this needs like 520. Let me count, like 5,000 ticks or so in order to be consumed. So a naive approach. This is also getting at where I'm getting at. The first step is to make all of this go down to a certain level. So when I'm doing research productivity, basically the whole trick that I'm doing is I want them all to be under the insertion limit, and then I can insert everything together. And after I've inserted everything together, this is the important point. If everything is inserted together at some point, at any point, and let's say also agricultural is never an issue. If everything else is inserted at the same point at the same time, then these clocks will work perfectly. They'll be fine until we switch research again, but that's a different problem. Even if I lose back pressure, if I've inserted everything once correctly, then if I lose back pressure, what's going to happen? Let's say I lose back pressure on red, but everything is inserted correctly. Red will run out. Okay, but the rest cannot keep being consumed anyways. So they're going to still remain aligned. I'm going to insert red on the next cycle. And since I've inserted red, then they're going to continue right where they left off, right? The ratios are still gonna be correct. Like if I have 0 red and 12, let's say, of this one, then I should have, and this is where it stopped, let's say it was like that, then if I put 16 red, this is exactly the same place where it should be overall. That's the important thing to realize it. But so okay, so since if we insert everything together, it's fine. How do we get to the point where we can insert everything together? Well, we need to get to the point where everything is under the insertion limit. Okay, how do we get to everything being under the insertion limit? Well, let's start with something simple. Let's try to get everything to be within a certain range first, because this is at 23, this is at 9. That's not great. That makes the problem harder. So Abucnasty has done the same thing, I think, basically, or that was the reasoning, which is, okay, I'm doing research productivity. The insertion limit is 6, so I'm gonna set every inserter to be enabled all the time, and set the stack size to 4. Now, in theory, you could do stack size 1, but that fucks up the belts. Maybe it doesn't even matter. That would also simplify the transition a lot more, to be honest. If you could do that, but I think it can fuck up things, so I'm not sure about it. Let's just put it this way. But anyway, we set the stack size to 4. So what's gonna happen is, oops, I think I went too far. Let me check. No, actually we're fine. So look where we're at now. We're still consuming this, by the way. We still haven't gone far enough. But look where we're at now. everything is between 5 and 9. Everything except agriculture. Again, we forget about agricultural. So this is the first step of the transition. I just enable everything, stack size 4, and wait long enough so that, especially, I wait long enough so that the legendary science packs, where in the worst case scenario they can have 25 science packs at full remaining. This remaining that is 490% in this case. I need to wait until that is consumed all the way down to 9 if I'm doing research prod, or down to 13 if I'm doing something other than research prod. Because in that case, if I'm doing research prod, I want them to be between 5 and 9. If I'm doing something else, between 9 and 13. So now that they're all between 9 and 5 and 9, this is the first step. Here. This is the first step. Basically, after I detect a transition, I wait for the clock to get up to 3200. This is roughly how long it takes to go from 25 legendary science packs down to 9. So now, obviously, because this detection is not perfect, usually this phase lasts a bit longer than it should, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. So let's get up to that 3.2K. And by the way, okay, so this is the entire transition, 3,900. So if I'm doing Promethium, I reduce the stack size. If I'm not doing Promethium, again, I reduce the stack size, but for 1550 ticks. So this is also coupled with this one, which says, okay, if I am in the transition phase, and this is needed just because of some other stuff, you'll see, I want the clock to be above 0, it can't be 0. Then these are the signals that go to the inserters. Enable them all non-stop. So these are combined on the red signal, and then they're passed onto this inserter. There you go, stack size 4 and the rest. And normally, these ones, the right combinators, the ones on the right, these ones control the stack size and also control these transitions. The left one controls agricultural. I'll talk about it later. So yeah, these control the transitions. So these pass along now stack size 4 and all the rest. And normally they just pass along 16. So normally they just pass the stack size 16, but this reduces it by 12. So now that we reached the first step, now we have guaranteed everywhere between 5 and 9. Now comes the next problem, and how do I get from 5 to 9? Because I don't want to be between 5 to 9. I want to be basically between 0 and 5, right? Ideally, I don't want to be at 0. I want to be at 1 to 5. So the next problem is, okay, well, if I just let them consume themselves, well, this one is going to go down to 0, but this one is still going to be above 5 if I just wait and not insert and then try to insert everything together. That doesn't work. So, funnily enough, what you have to do is you have this clock. If you'll notice, if you start this clock, first of all, everything will insert together. Then it's going to do a few things until eventually, it takes 2 cycles of the legendary until it's all synced up again to insert everything again. So what I do is literally this. So when I'm at tick 3200, I have 5 to 9 in all the labs. So 130 ticks later, I'm going to insert normal quality science. And again, stack size 4. So why? Because if I wait 130 ticks, and remember, when it comes to research productivity, it's about 520 ticks. You insert 16 every 520 ticks. So this is 1/4 of that. 520 divided by 4 is 130. So this is how long it takes to consume 4 normal quality science packs. So 130 ticks later, I have consumed 4 normal quality science packs, so I want to insert 4 more, so that I continue decreasing the number of legendary quality science packs. So really, all of this basically to get the legendary quality science packs low enough so that I can insert them, guaranteed. Because at this point they're still 5 to 9, so I need to get them to 1 to 5 range, or basically, yeah. So then again, 130 ticks even later, now I want to insert normal quality plus uncommon, because now uncommon has gotten down to 1 to 5. Here it wasn't 1 to 5, here it was 3 to 7. I also want to insert epic, but here's the thing, epic won't be everything below 5, but if it is below 5, I need to insert some now in order to guarantee here that everything is 1 to 5. Otherwise it might run out and then it gets stuck. If I insert it later, like normally you would insert it here, right? Because here you do 1, 2, 3, and here you do 4. If I insert it here, I'm gonna have too much here. So I need to insert here only to the ones that have too little in order to keep it going. Okay, 130 ticks later, I insert normal quality and rare, then again normal and uncommon, then just normal again. Now in theory I could have inserted 16 here and then not insert here, here, or here, but whatever. Normal, and guess what? Now everything here will be between 1 and 5, and I can insert everything. So, and then just start the clocks. So, all of this, I haven't found a way to make it less than all of this. That's all this is. What I explained here, that's it. So it's not really that complex. So let me show you how that works. So first, this one reads the belt. So this belt is read onto here, and yeah, I just pass the signals from 16 to 1. So all of the belts are read here, then they're passed along, and here I get either the one of the indexes. So basically this separates the lanes. So I don't know, the bottom lane, top lane, doesn't matter, but doesn't matter how they are separated. But this is the red, this is the green, here it's the blue, here is the purple. So this is the one lane, this is the other lane. Then, so yeah, this is, I also have like, yeah, another thing that might help if you're using my blueprint. I have these display panels that kind of describe what I have in the corresponding tile set. So here I have refined concrete, so everything in the refined concrete corresponds to this one. Everything in this hazard concrete corresponds to this. So, and you can read some of these to if it helps. So here I'm encoding the science pack by lane, quality, inserter, and the, you know, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signals just passed along here. So here I do the lane. Here I find I translate from belt and lane onto inserter, and by quality. So basically, I add now, hold on, give me a second. So here, now I'm at 3199. So we go a bit more, and now you see all of them are turned off. So here, I'm gonna try to insert at, oh, whoops, I actually forgot I left this like this. Okay, well, just to keep the explanation simple. I'm gonna try to insert at 3330. This is what I have here, 3330, only normal quality. So when I'm doing Prometheum, and I'm at that time after the transition, I want to insert normal quality, which also includes Prometheum. That's why the 6 is here. So let's go to that tick. I actually passed it. I'm an idiot. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter, but basically what this says is, okay, I have red here, red quality here. I don't have normal quality blue. I do have normal quality gray. I don't have normal quality space. I don't have normal quality metallurgic. And then again here, none of the, on the other lane, none of these are normal quality. So then the signals are connected on the red wire here. So this is basically normal quality for each inserter. Do I have normal quality on one lane? Do I have normal quality on the other lane? And then these are combined. They're passed along here. And then, for example, this says, I have normal quality on the first inserter and the third inserter. And here it says, I don't have any normal quality on the other lane on any of the inserters. Now, the other thing that happens is I'm also passing along the opposite lane in order to blacklist it. Because here, I wanted to insert red signs and gray signs, but I don't want them if for some reason one of these happens to be below the insertion limit. I don't want them to insert that by accident. So I block them. And that's why I have the filters here. And you can actually see it, like this is picking up red, it's picking up gray, and I'm picking up promethium. So they're gonna pick up. Now, in theory, 9 ticks later, I think 8 might work as well, but anyway, it's 9. It would have tried to insert from the other lane, but there's nothing. Let's go forward like 100 ticks, and you can see nothing else is gonna happen. Look, this is now going down again, and now I need to insert uncommon, as you see, and the normal quality again. So now instead of these two, I need these two. So now I have, again, normal quality goes to these two, uncommon quality goes to these two. So here I have 2 and 5 has uncommon quality on one lane, and 3 and 5 on the other lane. So 2 is this one, and it has blue, which is uncommon quality on one lane. 3 also has uncommon, this is 3, has uncommon the yellow, and 5 has uncommon on both lanes, blue and... So these are passed along, then combined, and then I also block the opposite lane at each time. So now at 3, 4, 60, it's like wait a little bit more. 1 tick, I'm gonna pass along these. So all of these should insert, but none of these. And then they're gonna insert the opposite. So they insert 4 of each of them. And then I think this guy and this guy, yeah, are gonna insert again. The opposite lane. It's like that. So that's the logic. There's no epic in this test. The reason is that I think the meta is gonna be normal, uncommon, or legendary quality for all the sciences. I don't think we're gonna have epic or rare. I'm not even 100% sure my setup would work with those sciences, but most likely it would, actually. But yeah, if you have issues, let me know. So that's what happens. Then we do the rest, and maybe I can skip ahead now because that's all it just does the same thing, like normal and uncommon here, and then or normal and rare here, and then normal and uncommon here. Like you can see, these come from rare, these come from uncommon. These were the epic over here. The legendary ones actually aren't used anywhere. I don't know why I have them, just for completeness, I guess. That's all this does. It just says at each time, insert the correct things. So all of this is not really that daunting anymore, is it? And then at the very end, at 3850, it inserts normal quality again, which was this thing, 3850. And then we start everything again. So let's go to that. Fuck, why did it start over? Okay, maybe I fucked around with something anyway. Okay. So now we go to 3850. Insert normal. And guess what? Now if I go to 3980, it should be ready to insert everything. So what happens at 3980? First of all, at 3900, I want to stop the inserting 4 at a time. I want to insert 16, because the whole goal was to get here and now be able to insert 16 instead, and then start the normal insertion. Wait, you guys can't see actually. I'm sorry. Yeah, so if I go to, once I get to 3980, I want to insert everything normally. So, you know, just as a easy cutoff, I insert 3900, I stop the inserting 4 at a time, I insert 16 at a time. So this stops the stack size being small, and then what happens, we go here. So once I have, while I have below 3974, I pass this signal, and what happens here, basically it keeps the clocks stuck at 889. They don't increase, and if you remember here, if it's below 889, 890, it passes along a signal. But these clocks here keep getting reset. So these guys actually don't have anything to pass along. These get stuck at 7. So that's how the clocks get stuck. And then in order to offset them again, what happens here exactly at 3974 or something similar for other sciences, I offset this one of the clocks. And then these are multiplied. This is just kind of a loop in order to keep them like that. So this is a 3974. We can go up to there. So these already got passed on. So you see now this is negative. It doesn't matter. This will increase and then it will just remain like a normal clock. And eventually this will send the first signals. There you go. It's passing along the signals now. And soon it will start. These guys have started to pick up. And here you see, everything is between 1 and 5. You see? So now even this one is able to pick up once, and then they pick up again. And that's it. That's the transition. Now, one more thing about the transition is, because the transition is everything does everything at the same time, and because here it takes, you know, the normal insertion, because now it's just the transition is done. Now it's the normal clock again. But because I do staggered insertion, one column at a time, it takes a few seconds to go all the way through. So that's why you'll see a little dip here, and maybe I can go on the 5 second, and you'll see the dip is actually 5 seconds. There you go. The dip is like 4 or 5 seconds. There you go. And now you're back to maximum. And that's because the ones in the back are, yeah, they actually run out briefly before the wave gets all the way to them. That's it. That's the transition. So in practice, you will actually see it like this in this bar. I'll go even faster, and it's up to 312.928, and that's what it should be. There you go. That's the transition. And very specific stuff to do. Now, let's go into a few more things. Now, like I said, if I lose back pressure now, that doesn't matter, even if it's on the lead lab. Actually, on the lead lab, it does matter because it's going to detect it as a science change. So, yeah, I guess try to keep the... I mean, it will still work, it will just get stuck, like resetting. But here, let's say I delete the science packs here for a while. I think I picked the wrong science pack. Let's do this one. There you go. So now you have a few of them who stopped. But you'll see it'll be fine. It may take a while. Here you go. It may take a while because the clock needs to do a full loop, which, like I said, it's inserting legendary quality twice. But then it's fine. So losing back pressure doesn't really affect it. And you can see it didn't do another transition, it just... yeah. So unless this one detects a loss of back pressure, then it's fine. However, if you lose back pressure during the transition, that's a problem, because you need back pressure in order to guarantee these very specific insertions, so that every lab is in a specific state in order to be synced up and be able to lose back pressure after that. So, back pressure detection, that's the next one. So you can see there's a green wire coming over here, and it just passes along all of the sciences that you may have on the belt. So if any of them are below 16, this is what this is, and this checkmark just says, I'll talk about it later. If any of them are below 16, or if I don't have 11 inputs, which I get from this guy, count the inputs, because this any signal, like if something is 0, it won't really consider it here. It will just be like, so it needs to be 1 to 15 basically for this to trigger. So if this is true or this is true, then it means I lost back pressure, and if that happens, then where does this go? Oh, never mind. It's this red signal goes to the medium electric pole and gets passed on to here. So this says, if I had a back pressure loss signal, but it was during transition, this detects if I am still in a transition, roughly. So remember, this clock is the transition clock, and the maximum transition loss is roughly 4,000 ticks, as you saw. So if the clock is below 4,000, then I'm probably in a transition, not necessarily, but probably. So if I detect a back pressure loss in the time, then I pass it along further, and then here I just keep how many ticks it's been since the last meaningful back pressure loss, which means meaningful, like actual, like during a transition. And then if there is a back pressure loss during that time, then I wanna keep thinking I'm transitioning for at least 5,000 ticks. So I'm extending basically the transition by 5,000 ticks, as long as there is a back pressure loss, because when the back pressure loss finishes for the last time, it takes 5,000 ticks for the belts to get all the way to the end. So that's why this is 5,000. So basically, maybe I can trigger this. I mean, I can easily trigger this. So you can see it starts. We switch back to this one because it lasts longer. Yeah, it resets sometimes, but that's okay. Okay, now look what happens if I delete some here. So I'm deleting. This doesn't count up. It's gonna wait 5,000 ticks. It actually pauses everything so that the 5,000 ticks are enough. And then eventually it counts up again. Because it needs to wait 5,000 ticks for everything to get back, to be certain that I have back pressure, and then start inserting 4 at a time, 4 at a time, 4 at a time until everything is 5 to 9 or 9 to 13, and then it can do the actual transition. Okay. Now the check marks here are basically this thing, because you need, basically this checkmark is another thing you need to do manually. You need to enable whether I am checking for back pressure loss detection on each of the, on each row, because you may have, maybe you have 32 rows that you have pasted, but you only have signs for 16 of them. For the other 16 where you don't have the signs, you actually want to disable this so that it ignores any, the lack of back pressure on those ones and doesn't pass it along. Okay. One last thing to mention, which is kind of a weird mechanic, is that if you have normal quality science packs mixed with legendary, like in this example, and you should try to avoid this, but if you do, for some reason, and only if it's normal with legendary. If it's uncommon with legendary or something else, it doesn't matter. If it's normal with legendary, it's a problem. If it's legendary with legendary, it's fine. Then you need to add an extra arithmetic combinator. You put the normal quality signal here. You put the legendary quality item, and then you combine this with this onto the red one. So because this is, green is with red, you combine this with the red. This basically says, okay, when I want to pick up red science, make sure that you don't pick up legendary. I think the reason is, I don't remember exactly the reason, but I think it's while these are looping around, it's like sometimes because the legendary is so long, sometimes you may pick up the legendary too early. And that can fuck up the clock. So only in this case, you actually need to add this. Now, personally, I think the only legendary science is probably going to be white science, and you're probably going to have some uncommon sciences. So just mix white science with some uncommon. Ideally, yellow, because they actually go together pretty much. Like, you see yellow with... I think yellow with white are always together, and never apart, except maybe in health or some bullshit. So yeah, I think that everywhere else they're together. So if you do yellow uncommon, then just mix that with white if you're doing legendary white, and then you're fine. You don't need this. So I think now we can move on to the agricultural science packs. So first of all, so that I don't forget, this is a very simple clock, like counts up to 36,000 ticks, and then it gets rid of agricultural. You can see it passes along to this guy. So this guy just checks for any spoilage to get rid of it. Okay. So agricultural is on a completely different clock. Every 128 ticks, it's gonna divide this by 8 again because we're doing staggered insertion. And then as long as as long as the last time I picked up agricultural from this guy is below 500 ticks, then keep sending the agricultural signal. So you see this signal on the red, on the green, goes here, and then it goes here, and etc. Now, here's a kind of cool thing. Because I split them right down the middle, and there's 16 labs here, and then this one fills the belt back up fully. So there's another 16 here. In terms of agricultural science, this is basically identical more or less to this. In theory, probably these ones have a bit less freshness, but the belt is roughly the same. The belt should be full. So what happens is when this is 1, I pick up here, then this is 2, 3, 4, all the way to 16, and then it's again 1, 2, 3. So I'm inserting from left to right. First this one, this one, this one. So this one and this one insert agriculture together, then this column, and so on. I don't know how helpful this really is, like, it's kind of whatever, but yeah, it's kind of cool. So that's the basic, or the basics of the agricultural. So how do I get the ticks here? This guy picks up, passes on the ticks here, and whenever I pick up agricultural, it resets this clock, and then the ticks are passed onto here. Now, I have here, here I detect whether the agricultural science has low freshness. Not whether it has spoiled, but whether it has low freshness. So based on these ticks, I delay them by 1 tick, and then I pass how when it resets, I pass how many ticks it took to insert, basically. Then I don't remember what this does, but basically this is a storage cell that keeps it, you know, for all ticks except 1. And then because whenever it resets, it actually doesn't hold it for 1 tick, so this actually keep it. Like either this one or this one will keep the what I have here. So because of that, you can see here in the input, I have the last cycle, how many ticks it took. Now what happens here is if I'm not doing research productivity, which now I am, then this will actually be roughly half, because it's going to insert twice as fast. So this is going to be roughly 12, 13. Right? So I want 12 plus 12, I want 24, because I want the threshold that I set, which is now 24, to be the same regardless. Same idea as here, with this normalization based on quality. Here I have normalization based on whether I'm doing research prod or not. So either I double it up here, or I send it only once if I'm doing research prod. So as long as I'm inserting too fast, so if the cycle is too low, then I have low freshness. I consider that low freshness, so I pass that signal along on the screen wire, goes here, and then it goes over here. Once again, pass it along, and then if I am during a transition, okay, and I have low freshness or spoilage, we'll get into that later, then I wanna do something. What am I doing? Well, I keep the transition waiting, right? I don't start the clock of the transition, but I want the clock to be 1. I'll show you why, because this is just like minor details of the implementation. Maybe it could be done with less clunkiness, let's say. But I wanted 1 because this is checking if the clock is above 1. It has to check if it's above 1, otherwise, yeah. Because otherwise it's not going to pass all these signals. So basically, what does this mean? It will keep inserting agri-science and wait in the transition phase. Like, we will keep everything activated at stack size 4 and wait until it's high enough. And maybe I can demonstrate this a little bit. So if we switch back here, now you're gonna see oh, now it started, now it stopped. I don't know if that matters. I don't think it matters. Okay, I need to wait a bit more. So let's wait a bit. I'll wait a bit more. Okay. See, now it's low. So you'll see the transition won't finish until we have that little gap. if you remember. So let's speed it up. You see, this it's just waiting. Stuck at 20, and eventually it will suddenly go to 24. Starting to get there, but still. And now it transitions. There you go. Now, how do I detect if I actually have spoilage? This one is kind of funky. If I have spoilage here, what's going to happen? This guy won't pick it up, and this guy won't insert. Well, if I can't insert agricultural, but I need agricultural, what's going to happen? This will not have agriculture, and it will stop doing anything. So eventually, this guy who is inserting red science will stop inserting red science. So if we are late picking up red science, then most likely the reason is that agricultural has spoiled and we cannot pick it up. Of course, it can also be because you lost backpressure here, but yeah, don't lose backpressure on this on this one. So that's that's kind of the trick. So how do I detect this? Well, okay, if you remember, this one has the normalized values. I change them from any quality to just normal quality, and then I'm like, okay, if this is over 500, then it means I'm not picking up something, and I should be picking up. This is also how I get these ones. So this changes it to 1 if I'm not picking up something. So again, if this is positive, then yeah, I'm recycling. So this finally explains this fully and explains this recycle signal. So this recycle signal goes again here. It also goes here and makes this wait, but also goes over to these guys and just gets passed along again, and these guys will start recycling. So these guys pick up, and then there's a few of them just to make sure that I don't have any, that it doesn't get fucked up. And you can see that there's even spoilage on the belt, as you can see, but I don't care. So yeah, that's it. That's how it detects, and maybe we can do a quick example. It's gonna take a while, but not that long. In the meantime, let me talk about something else. So, although I think I've explained almost everything. Yeah, the clock, explained all of this, the encoder, this part. I do also have this, which you can maybe use if you're trying to keep the... If you want to do a bit better with it being more responsive to using agricultural, you can maybe delete agricultural non-stop. Now it's a bit of a problem. Okay, now it's starting to spoil. You can set this to be above 0 or above equal to 1. So if I have any spoilage on the belt, then start deleting it. Now for the agricultural science pack, I'm not sure what to set here. It definitely should be below 6,272. I used to have values that work for me, but now that I have clocked it kind of well, I'm not sure what you can do about it. But in theory, you can, if you change some stuff, maybe you can get to the point where you're constantly consuming agricultural, and then the transitions to agricultural science will be a lot faster. Okay, so now I have full spoilage, so let's switch back. So now you see it deletes, blah, blah, blah. The clock is stuck here, and boom. That's it. It's actually funny that it's actually a lot faster in getting back to full SPM if it is fully spoiled rather than if it's low freshness. Now, of course, with low freshness, it still researches, so maybe overall, you know, the integral, maybe this integral, this area is actually better. On average, the SPM is higher, which is probably the case. But yeah, if it's fully spoiled, it takes like 5-10 minutes to get back to working. The last system I think that needs to be talked about is, this isn't really a necessary system, but I have it for quality of life. What if you want to switch a science? Like, let's say you had normal quality red and you want to do uncommon quality red. So here are the steps. First, you add the quality to the belt. So you just put the uncommon quality on your belt. You just feed it. Second, you research any technology that uses that science, or just do research productivity, but anything that uses the science that you want to switch to. Or well, everything uses red, but let's say you want to switch to orange, then you need to do some science that uses orange. If you want to change from uncommon to, let's say, normal. Then you add the old science packs to the constant combinator next to this display panel. Here was the display panel, here is the constant combinator. So in this case, if I want to change to uncommon red, then you're going to add normal quality red. But just for the sake of, let's change this to, let's say, legendary. So we're going to delete this, and we're going to change this to legendary. I don't think even this order really matters that much. Here we go. Next, set the correct quality on arithmetic combinators and check for the normal legendary issue. Now, this is uncommon, it's not normal, so we're fine. So all we have to do is here, change this to legendary. And finally, now we wait. Once the labs are empty of the old science, check the last labs to be sure. Empty, we're gonna remove this from here. So what's happening right now? Actually, it already finished. Never mind, it was too fast. So what actually happened, I guess you can see it still, to some degree. This guy was inserting them non-stop, the normal, the whatever quality. Like these are working non-stop now. They're just picking up whatever, they don't care. So, and they're set to stack size 4, so they're gonna pick up everything that is uncommon quality. They're gonna fill it up, and then this guy is just gonna remove them. He's just gonna keep removing the uncommon quality. And once these are empty, and also these ones, which these ones are, we're actually fine. It already finished. Like, it's actually really quick. Because they insert non-stop and they're removing non-stop. And there's quite a bit of buffer space, so it's actually really quick to get through the whole thing. And remove all the uncommon and be ready. So now if I just remove this, now it's actually gonna do the transition. And then it's fine. Oop. Well, doing something. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's also one bug, which might actually be what happened here. Very likely. There is one bug, which is actually a bug, I think, with Factorio, because I can't see how it's a bug of mine. And the way to fix this, most likely, is to, instead of this being 1 tick, make them be 2 ticks. So instead of this being 3330, you can change this to be... whoops, that's not good. 3331. So instead of just enabling for 1 tick, you enable them for 2 ticks. But you need to do this with all of them, and it's kind of annoying to me because it's a bug, I think, of Factorio's and not my fault. And also, it might actually break other things because, okay, I mean, let me show you the bug first, but this is how I would go about fixing it. Change this, everything to be 2 ticks. 2 ticks here, 2 ticks here, 2 ticks here, 2 ticks here. All of these should be 2 ticks. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah, when this one picks up at 3460, I think I did actually. This picks up at 3469. Okay. So, what is the bug? Let me load. An inserter issue. So this guy, what's going to happen is this inserter will not pick up blue, even though it should. So let me find it. I've made a thread about this on the forums. There you go. So there is this thread. I've kind of explained it. Blah blah blah. This is the more interesting save file. It's been downloaded 23 times, but there's still no response, or it hasn't been assigned to anyone. I don't know what's going on. But basically, okay, after this save file, 3911 ticks after loading, it picks up blue science. So here I'm basically transitioning. Yeah, I just changed to resource productivity, if you'll see. Because you see it says resource productivity, but it's actually the SPM is 625,000, which means I was doing something else. So if I go to 3911, so what should happen is it will detect the research change and it will start inserting non-stop. So let's go like that. You'll see they're always active. So now it picks up blue. And 255 ticks later, it picks up purple. This is exactly when the first part of the transition, where they're always active, actually stops. So let's go to 250 or so. Let's keep going. You see they're all still active. So I keep going. Picks up purple. You see they're still all active. You can also look at here. Yeah. And now they're just disabled. They're all red. So I don't know if this is relevant. I wrote it in the bug report. Yeah. This has 5, this has 9. And the purple is at 9. I don't know if that somehow matters. I have no idea. It shouldn't. I don't see why. Anyway. Okay, and finally, 266 ticks later, it should be picking up. So 130 ticks later, it should pick up normal quality, and 260 later, normal and uncommon. So it fails to pick up blue. So if I do, let's say another 250. So now look, blue is at 2. And I keep going. And now they're all enabled, right? On the next tick, it should pick up blue. Right? This is at 3 on blue, 8 on purple, 8 on purple, 1 on blue, 4, 8, 4, 5. And next tick, this guy has blue, this guy has blue, this guy doesn't. 1 and 8. I don't see why. There you go, that's the bug. So sometimes this can happen. I don't see any reason why it would happen. It seems to always happen with research productivity, or it might happen actually with other sciences, but the other ones are much more robust to the science packs being unbalanced, both because of the higher insertion limit and because you're using less science packs. So yeah, I've personally only noticed it with research productivity. So sometimes this can happen. You may be able to fix it with the solution I recommended here, where you double up you keep them active for 2 ticks, because I'm assuming if it's active for 2 ticks, it will actually work. We can actually even test this, because this is trying to pick up uncommon over here. So I think it's this one. So we can actually add another. It's green, green. Six one. So that's it for this one, or here. $17. That should do it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So now let's try this again. Remember exactly which one it is, but we can do 3911, because I know it picks up at that point. I think it's this guy. And now 255 ticks later, it picks up purple. There you go. And oops, again. 2666 later, it's gonna fail to pick up. Let's do 265. So now it's supposed to pick up, it doesn't, whereas these guys did. And now the next tick, it does pick up. So for some reason, it needs an extra tick. And I'm assuming now it's gonna work fine. Yeah, 312928. Whereas if I go here and just run it, it's gonna break. You see? Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like a bug from Factorio itself. But there you go, now you're aware of it. Yeah, that's how you also change the science. I think that's everything. The wires, these lamps, all they do is they show you which ones are activated, just so that you have easy visual confirmation. So that's it. So what are the things I want to change? I'm still not sure exactly what input priority to set here. Basically, if left or right, middle doesn't matter. Middle and right is basically the same, because you see this is basically always empty. Another thing to notice is how you insert the science packs here. You need to kind of figure out on your own for your own setup, because it depends on your freshness. But like if your average freshness is like 90%, then really you're consuming 120 divided by 0.9. So you need to be consuming 13.33%, 13.33 extra science packs. So 13 times 4 is whatever it is, for 53 science packs per second. So you need to feed it an extra 53 per second, roughly. Or a bit more. To be honest, I would do it's better to do a bit more than a bit less, and then it uses a bit less from here, right? From this. So yeah, you need to manually figure that out. I guess that's one negative versus using the request access. Let's see. So, but yeah, I'm still not sure about that. I'm also not sure which what signals to pass along here. Like, for example, should I pass along this signal, the hold? There's also this signal from here, which I use, you know, in case I want to detect if I should delete them. There's also another signal here, because all of these little details do matter. How do the splitting here, these splitters, there may be a better way to do it so that it takes up less UPS. So yeah, all of these details matter. Whether these are even connected to a network somehow, or maybe I should... Okay, this is another example. For example, just wiring up inserters cause UPS always. Like, literally, if you have this, even if it's connected to nothing, even if it's like that, or like that, this takes up UPS right now, always, no matter what. Even if you have no conditions here, nothing. So these little things that I want to optimize still, and I still don't know why Abucnasty's version does better on steel productivity, because he inserts from the opposite direction. Yeah, it's just like some counterintuitive results about the staggered insertion that I still have yet to figure out. Some other things, one big one is if I can somehow get rid of the set filters here, that would be pretty important. And how do you send, is this actually the best way to send the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 signals? Because again, Abucnasty does it a different way, and that has some positives and some negatives, and mine has some positives and negatives. It gets a bit tricky, but it's all these little details. The actual thing works, aside from this little detail bug that I was talking about, and it might not work with Rare or Epic. And it's kind of annoying that you need this. If I could also remove this, although it's not really a big deal to do this manually. And by the way, I have. If you use my blueprints, I have you doing this manually because if I can automate it, but it would be so many more combinators. But just you spending the time to understand how it works is not worth it. It's probably easier to just do that. That's kind of it for this. Now, on research productivity, it did about 10% better than Abucnasty's version. I think there's also Erictia also made some, but I don't think I have. I don't have his labs in order to test against them. Plus, his computer is kind of weird, so he may have done stuff that aren't as optimal. So I don't want to test against something that is probably suboptimal for most computers, or at least for my computer. But yeah, roughly 10% better. I think the main reason is the staggered insertion, which is why it's weird that on still productivity it's actually not better. And yeah, finally, the last thing to talk about is to go to kind of a normal save file. So here I have kind of a test case / note. So when you use these blueprints, this is what you've seen so far, which has also these connections, and you should have this lab as far away from the landing pad as possible. So here, I'm assuming the landing pad is here in the middle. So all the way here is a corner one, so you want this to be in the corner. Now the connections from one to the next. You need to connect these inserters on a single red wire that goes to the next one. You need to connect every column. This is one column, so green wire to the next one, green wire to the next one, including the first one. It's just that these ones are connected, but these ones are connected. Let's see how they go like that, and they go here, and they go to this guy. But this is also a column, so you need to connect. So you need 32 connections. You need to connect the spoilage, and you need to connect these guys, which pass the signals about backpressure loss and recycling, deleting spoilage and agricultural. Now the real tricky part is when you go from one to the other side. So here I've done it this way, but it doesn't matter. You can, I will place this now at the bottom, but this is where I pass the inserters that delete stuff along and just connect it once. And then the other simple part is this one. It just falls all the way along, and then they just connect. Now the tricky part is the columns. Each column. So this is what I've done here. So let's go from here because it's right. This is what you're used to. So the first column goes to this one. The second one goes to this. Third goes to this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Column 9, column 10, 11, 16, column 17, blah, blah, and column 32 down here. So this is kind of how I've done it just for simplicity. Obviously, you don't need all of these, and maybe I should have done it from left to right, but anyways. And then here I have a way for them to switch over. So I switch them around because... Oh yeah, so now they're flipped. So this is now the first one, this is the second one, etc. This is the 9th. So here is actually left to right, top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you would normally read if you're from most countries. So yeah, this is just a bit of a flip. And in the blueprints I have the lead, which is these 4 rows, all of this, plus all of this, obviously. And then the followers is actually this part. So you can also add the connections instantly. Is it complaining here? I'm not sure, it's probably the, yeah. Anyway, so this is the top. And then you can connect these somewhat easily, the rest. And this is just this part, the actual this thing in case you want to use them, but as long as you don't make a mistake, it's fine. I think that's it. Thankfully, I recorded this a second time because this cut the video length by 1 hour and still like almost 2 hours. If I ever release a version 1.0 where I figure out all these little details, how to have like a super optimal lab setup. I mean, I might not super optimize all of these, but at least all of these are copied, 100 times. I might do an update video, might do a whole video again, but it's probably minor stuff. So yeah, thank you for watching. Currently I'm playing Pyanodons, because I'm kinda, like I said at the beginning, burnt out on megabasing. So I'm not sure when the next megabasing video is, but I thought I would at least release this one, even though I consider it unfinished, because it's finished enough and it is better than whatever else is out there so far to my knowledge. And it works, and I think it's also a bit more easy to understand than Abuc's version. But let me know if I didn't explain something too well. Thank you for watching. Bye.